This week, we are bringing you part 2 of the outrageous story of lifetime criminal Mark Brandon Chopper Reed. This is an Australian classic, and it goes out to all our fabulous Aussie fans. We love you, and it's all the same sources as last time.
Go listen to part 1 first, you silly billies.
Yeah.
You know, check us out on all the podcast apps, YouTube. You can watch us. How exciting is that? You know?
Yeah. Are those all your announcements?
Oh, yeah. I was just freestyling it.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, those are my announcements. You know, find us on social media. I don't know.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
All right, this is a true story involving murder, violence, drugs, adult themes, etc. So if any listeners are like Nick and they don't like to hear about those kind of things, go listen to a different podcast.
We always joke. We always end up cursing. That's not going to change now. But you can change course. It is not too late for you to be like, you know what? That's not going to work for me in my life right now. And you could just go do something different, and we love you.
All right, Nikki, are you ready to hear the rest of this story?
No.
Okay, let's get started. And guess what, guys? If you're a new listener, you may not know this, but Nick used to do a lot of recaps of part 1s.
Right. For our multiple part episodes, there was a thing called Nick's Recap.
Yeah.
Where I would try to remember what the hell happened in the last one for the listener's benefit and Muriel's undying delight at hearing me trying to read out loud. So we're doing that this time.
Take it away, Nicholas.
Previously on Muriel's Murders. We ended part 1 of this Australian tale of violent lunacy where we started this Australian tale. In Australia. Mark Brandon Reed got the nickname Chopper from what I can and can't recall for some mysterious reason other than chopper motorcycles. Maybe because he chopped off people's toes. Maybe because he chopped off his own ears. No one will ever know unless Muriel tells us. Chopper started beating people as a wee lad, or whatever they say in Australia. He liked to stick people with cattle prods and make them poop their pants. He liked to put snakes in people's faces and make them get bit. He was a gang leader in the streets and a freak in the sheets. Actually, from what I can tell, he's a virgin. No one knows for sure unless Muriel tells us. Chopper stepped into prison and stepped up, becoming one of the most violent prison gang leaders in one of the most violent prisons. This is where he really put in his 10,000 hours of violence and mastered the art of wrecking shop. During one of his 5-minute stints of freedom, he tried to free one of his jail buddies by taking a judge hostage, which he immediately gave up on and was arrested. But the stunt was effective at inspiring a young, upcoming maniac, a total stranger, named something I can't remember and will never know. That name has been lost to history until Muriel tells us in the next 30 seconds. Anyway, the young dude admired Chopper so much that he took a bunch of hostages to demand his release from jail. Following in Chopper's footsteps, this hostage plan also resulted in diddly squat, except for he did get his ass beat by his mom in front of the cops, and that was very funny. And she was like, yeah, he's just a loser who likes this other loser named Chopper Reed. That's why he did this. It's so embarrassing. And then he was arrested. Okay. But perhaps this is what the wee lad wanted all along, because part 1 ended with this guy joining Chopper's prison gang, the Overcoat Gang. Really terrible gang name, guys. And quickly became one of Chopper's most trusted brutalizers. Have they killed anyone yet? I honestly don't remember. But I'm pretty sure Muriel's going to get to that part any moment. The end.
Good job. That was great. That was super entertaining.
You got to give the people what they want, you know?
Dang, Nick.
I don't even know if my camera looks good. Is it set up well? We'll see. Did that make it worse? Who knows? Okay.
You look great.
Thanks.
You're very beautiful. All right. So we left off last time. Chopper Reed's back in prison. He has freshly chopped off his ears.
Yes.
And, as one would expect, Chopper Reed was not a particularly compliant inmate. And that did not change upon his return to prison in 1978. In December 1978, in the midst of a crazy gang war, Chopper managed to pull yet another wildly unsuccessful caper. This time, Chopper, his best friend forever, Jimmy Lognan, right? Do you remember him?
He's the one he tried to free.
He's the guy he tried to free?
Yeah, I don't remember why they're best friends, except for they just like to make people eat razors in prison or something?
Yeah, they're just best friends from bashing people in prison.
Yeah, okay.
And Jimmy Lognan at this point, he was on his second escape attempt after breaking both his ankles the first time he tried.
And just like jumped out of the second story window. He's like, damn it. Didn't see that one coming. Gravity.
So Chopper, Jimmy Lognan, and their friend John managed to escape the high security H division and climb to the roof of an adjoining building. They said they broke out to protest prison conditions and lack of access to psychiatric care. So they packed a bunch of candy.
They're like, you just don't, like he chopped off his ears to try to pretend that he was crazy.
Yeah.
But that didn't work, it sounds like.
I think he got some respite, but he was definitely back.
I like how they're just taking this like social justice warrior cause.
There's a lot of it. There's a lot of, they're mad, I mean, I don't really know where the truth lies of like why they're doing this, but that's what they say.
That's
why.
the flag they're raising.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they packed a bunch of candy, lollipops, and chocolate and crammed themselves in a crawl space above the prison theater.
Just like a 6-year-old trying to run away from home.
I know. I love that detail.
Yeah.
Jimmy ate all the candy in like 4 hours, according to Chopper. It was supposed to last them 24 hours. And then apparently Jimmy also, they had a bunch of soda. And Jimmy drank all that and then had to pee like 6 times. So he kept getting up and peeing in this little girl's face.
I think this is what happens when you just like start doing violence really young and then never like actually grow up.
Yeah, it's like Lost Boys a little bit.
Yeah.
So when they managed to get on the roof, there wasn't any way to get off. And the guards just left them up there to do whatever. Like they couldn't get away. So they milled around a little bit. They ripped up the tile on the roof for a while. Chopper threatened to take off his shirt, light it on fire, and stuff it into the roof, but he didn't do it. Chopper gave up pretty quick. He only stayed up there for about an hour before bashing himself in the head with a big-ass board of wood studded with nails and then climbing down from the roof, where he was promptly taken once again to the hospital. The other 2 guys tied ropes around their waists and armed themselves with wooden boards, but nobody came up to challenge them, and they eventually chilled out. They quietly surrendered after a 26-hour siege. These guys are just, I'm telling you, I'm like, how did they get away with so much stuff?
I mean, because it just sounds, they got away with it because the prison guards just like weighed their options and was like, well, it's not risky at all just to leave them up there for longer.
Yeah, they'll burn themselves out. They're on a sugar high right now.
Yeah, they're going to
crash.
beat themselves harder than we could ever beat them. So
a month later, in January 1979, Amos Atkinson, the young man who led the charge in the infamous Italian Waiters Club siege, he followed in the steps of his idol once again and cut both his ears off with a razor.
No.
Yes. This
is he in the gang yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
This set off a rash of self-mutilations from the Overcoat gang. The same week, Amos cut his ears off. Greg Blue Brazel cut his ear off. And then Jimmy Lognan slashed the front and back of his torso with a razor. And Chopper said it was pretty wild, but all that craziness all ended when a guy named Gary Davis got too hyped and cut his penis off. Now, that's one of those Chopper things where these things happen. I found everything in newspaper articles except for the penis thing.
Okay.
So maybe it happened, maybe it didn't.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anything to corroborate that part of the story.
It might have just been some, one extra pink sprinkle on an already sprinkled donut, or a cupcake
maybe.
or whatever. He's like that. Or
he said it definitely made everybody stop. Like he's like, well, they all stopped after that. Unfortunately, after all this bonding, just a few months later, the closeness between the men faded away. And in in August of 1979, the Overcoat gang imploded. Now, Chopper said it all happened because of a caper that he pitched to the group. At the time, Chopper had this idea. He wanted to organize a takeover of the entire H block, like literally. He wanted to lock all of the officers in the scullery and then pull each inmate out of their cell one by one and brutalize them individually to like assert full dominance, right? Total dominance.
Yeah, the dictator of H block.
Yeah. And according to Chopper, the 3 top overcoat gang members, the guys who had joined the Van Gogh Club months before, Chopper's closest allies, Amos Atkinson, Greg Blue Brazel, and Jimmy Lognan, they didn't love Chopper's plan. And Chopper said that 3 of these guys had a private chat without him and decided that their leader, Chopper Reed, had gone completely insane. So, Chopper...
Like, I mean, he chopped his ear off. They're like, dude, we chopped her ear off.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but he did it first. It's
Yeah,
like,
right. What are we doing, man? These are never going to grow back.
so much blood. I like how they just thought it wasn't going to be bloody.
Well, it's like Van Gogh did it. I think they just didn't think it was going to be that
Yeah,
consequential.
and then painted a very famous image of him with a huge bandage wrapped around his head.
Well, maybe
And
he
then
was
he's
being
known
like,
for being an insane person the rest of his life. It's like, I don't know what more consequences, you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously you're not going to your brain's not going to fall out.
well,
And
you
it's
know,
cartilage, I guess, but
I
it
don't
just
think-
again shows like the basic just sort of lack of real world life experiences when you live a violent life of lunacy in the streets.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me very peripherally of like you talking about how people who just start touring like comics really young
Oh yeah.
start just to have sets about hotel rooms.
Yeah,
'cause
it's like
they
all
just
they can
don't
talk
do
about.
anything
Yeah.
else.
Like, boy, did you guys see that new reality show? They're just
There's
because they don't have
nothing
any life experience except for being on the road and watching reality shows
else.
in
They're just
hotel
like
rooms.
being gross. And just like, yeah. You know, something like that.
Yeah.
So Chopper said one August morning, he walked into the prison exercise yard and saw Amos Atkinson kind of clock him and then turn and run away the opposite direction. So if you've seen movies, like, you know, it's one of those things, like it happens in The Godfather Part 1 and 2 like 5 or 6 times, where like if you walk out and you're thinking today is normal and your friend looks at you, turns around and run the opposite way, yeah, there's going to be an assassination coming. So he says that then his best friend forever, Jimmy Lognan, and then Greg Blue Brazel ambushed him. They attacked him with an ice pick and a kitchen knife. Now, according to Jimmy Lognan and Greg Brazel, they had a totally different story. They say Chopper was super pissed that no one wanted to do his H-block takeover caper, and he wasn't letting it go. They say Chopper came up to them in the exercise yard that day, armed with a kitchen knife. Chopper asked Greg Brazel if he was with him or against him. Greg said, "If that's my only choice, I guess I'm against you, Chopper." So Chopper allegedly screamed, "Here's yours, Blue," and tried to stab him with his kitchen knife. They wrestled. Greg got the knife and stabbed Chopper like 5 times or so. Now, Chopper says that story was ridiculous. If Jimmy and the others didn't want to do his insane takeover of H-Block, all they had to do was use their words and say so. He was a reasonable guy.
He's like, I might not have my ears, but I still have my listening skills.
Now that was a good one, Nikki. You know, I'll let you decide which scenario seems like more realistic based on their personalities.
Suddenly Chopper's just like, why didn't you bring this up in couples counseling, guys?
Exactly. All we know for sure is the following. Chopper was stabbed enough times to lose several feet of bowel and intestine and was rushed into emergency surgery. Greg Blue Brazel had defensive knife wounds on his arms. And Jimmy Lognan was, I believe, never officially found to have physically participated in the stabbing at all. We also know the next day, Chopper was all pumped up on painkillers, did like 30 push-ups to prove his vitality, and ripped open all the stitches in his stomach. And, you know, those are the facts of the situation. So Chopper said after the stabbing, he lost
when
over...
vitalism goes wrong.
I mean, still, reasonable guy, right? You could have a conversation with him if you disagreed. Just reasonable all around. Chopper said after the stabbing, he lost over 50 pounds of pure muscle. And he and Jimmy were never friends again. His heart was broken from betrayal.
Yeah. It can be sad out there, you know?
Chopper's gang war pretty much ended after the 1979 stabbing. In 1980, Pentridge Prison opened up a new multi-million-dollar maximum security wing of the prison, K Unit, nicknamed Jika Jika. A bunch of the Overcoat gang was transferred there. Everyone was on lockdown. The war fizzled out, basically. And it was kind of high tech for the times. They had closed circuit TV, remote locking mechanisms, electronic doors, and fenced in escape proof rooftop exercise yards. But these guys were always going to be wilding out on some level. So it took inmates only 3 years to figure out how to escape the escape-proof prison. 4 of them got out in 1983. Jimmy Lognan had planned to escape with them, which would have been his 3rd attempt, but he was in the wrong section of the prison at the time. And actually, during that time, there were a bunch of gnarly escapes attempts from Pentridge. A bunch of dudes got caught tunneling out of F Division. They tunneled for a while underground and hit a wall and then turned and started tunneling again, and then they got caught, but they were like right before they were going to hit another wall. So they just say, well, you saved them some time, right? Also, let's see what else. Oh yeah. A few years earlier, a couple dudes snuck out in the compression part of a garbage truck. Like that was in the early 80s. One of those guys called himself the Chicken Man and sent a very clowning limerick to prison guards about flying the coop. I found it incredibly charming.
Are you going to read it?
No,
It's gone.
Cut it for time, and then I should have added it back in. So.
You've already spent more time talking about it than aren't limericks literally like 4 lines long?
Well, you're adding to the lines right now, sir. Keep going.
I'm a chicken with a feather. You can't catch me no matter the weather. Cluck, cluck, cluck. You're a bitch. Suck my dick. Fuck, fuck, fuck.
Why would you add all those things? Those are all things. I'm always like, stop saying that.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad you got it out of your system.
Okay. Chicken Man.
Good. You didn't even say flying the coop.
Oh.
It's the easiest thing to rhyme with. All right. Another guy also escaped Pentridge in a wig after a prison production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He just put on a disguise and walked out with a group of patrons.
That's a hilarious play to put on in a jail.
I know.
It's just like...
There's so much about that's so funny. I wish there was more details. That's
right. It's
so
like
funny.
it's also just like a great case in point of like you can learn how to pretend to be crazy, like the Jack Nicholson character.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like you just like throw together so many different
Well, it's essentially
brainstorming ideas.
What Chopper Reed was doing.
Yeah, and also then just hella inspiring to like throw a candy machine through the window or whatever. That might be the Simpsons version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Whatever. So, but then someone literally escaped.
Yeah.
It's very, very funny. That's on them.
What? Oh yeah, that guy escaped.
Yeah, don't let... I mean, I'm all for prisoners' rights, I guess. I actually haven't really put much thought into that. But, yeah, I would say go ahead and don't let him put on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Okay.
In the 70s in this particular prison. It just seems very funny. All right. In 1987, Jimmy Lognan made his final escape. Jimmy, along with a group of inmates, barricaded themselves in their dorm and lit their bedding and mattresses on fire to protest conditions in Jika Jika. 5 inmates died in the fire, including Jimmy, and they didn't mean to kill themselves. They just wanted to cause a ruckus. They asphyxiated before anyone could reach them, partly because of all these like new locking doors and mechanisms and things like that.
So what? The smoke? They choked on the smoke and died?
Yeah. Jika Jika was permanently closed after their deaths. A year before the 1987 fire, Chopper Reed was released early from prison after serving 9 years of his 14-year sentence for trying to kidnap that judge. Chopper said during the 9 years he'd spent at Pentridge, he watched criminals he knew on the outside get rich in this unprecedented way, and it was all because of drugs. And remember, Chopper thought drug dealers were trash, right? To him, everyone had gotten soft in the past decade in Melbourne. Like they were all just plastic criminals who liked to watch Scarface and didn't know anything about being an actual violent psychopath. He's like, tradition is gone. He felt a lot of the big timers running the Melbourne drug scene tried to act hard, like they came from the streets. You know, when Chopper like knew them and he knew they came up in the suburbs and like went to college. You know? And the newer generation, he said, was even worse. Just sitting around in the prison talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He was like, how can I even associate with these guys? Like, I can't even call myself a criminal anymore. Disgusting. Chopper was more into taking out his fake teeth to look crazy and playing Russian roulette in the back of Vietnamese pool halls in Melbourne. You know, that's when you put a bullet in the chamber of a gun, spin the barrel, point it at your head, and take your chances pulling the trigger, and then people watch and place bets on who will survive.
I think everyone knows that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, Russian roulette. Okay.
And actually, he legit won thousands of dollars doing what he called that stupid deer hunter game during his brief stint of freedom in 1986. But it freaked him out after a while and he quit.
I like how Russian roulette isn't even that stupid to him.
He's like, oh, yeah, I did that. Take my teeth out and look crazy.
But it sounds like it eventually did dawn on him just how dumb that was.
I don't know. I think he just was like, yeah, I was doing it for a while. And then I was like, man, I can't do this. There wasn't a lot of reflection, at least in his book. He's like, yeah, I had to stop doing that. All right. After Chopper was released in 1986, he flew to Tasmania. Oops, sorry. Anyway, Chopper thought everyone was soft and he wanted to be the biggest standover man in Australia. And he declared his own personal war on the top criminals in Melbourne. After Chopper was released in 1986, he flew to Tasmania, and that was his base camp. Then he'd fly into Melbourne to terrorize whoever he felt like, mostly high-rolling suburban drug dealers, gambling houses, massage parlors, and nightclubs. One of his favorite things to do, something he was known for, was walking into nightclubs with a stick of gelatin-based dynamite in his mouth between his teeth and just threatening to light it unless they gave him a bunch of money.
And that worked too?
Yeah. In the 7 months he was out of prison between 1986.
Wait, is gelatin based? Does that mean real dynamite?
Yeah, it's just like, it's called like gelinite.
Okay.
But it's real dynamite. It's just a different kind of dynamite.
Okay.
It's dynamite.
Probably putting gunpowder in your mouth is too gross. Gelatin dynamite.
I also don't think that would work the way that, like, I think this is like blasting dynamite for mining, so it would actually kill people.
Oh, okay.
I think if you filled your mouth with gunpowder and tried to light it.
Well, I mean, a stick of dynamite with gunpowder. Yeah, that'd be very funny if you just had gunpowder in your mouth.
I don't think it would do much to other people. Might not even light. All right.
All right.
In the 7 months he was out of prison between 1986 and 1987, Chopper said he made his money kind of like this. He collected protection money from bookmakers and massage parlors and nightclubs, and that made a few thousand a week, maybe 3,000. And then with other crimes, he'd make 5,000 altogether a week, doing things like robbing drug dealers and threatening to flush all their heroin down the toilet if they didn't give him a few $1,000s. And he'd also do special torture jobs. He would hire himself out for that for like $20,000 a pop. And that would be like, you know, cutting toes off with bolt cutters, that type of thing.
Right.
Then he'd turn around and finance his criminal enterprises. So paying off witnesses, paying off informants, buying weapons, renting cars and apartments, renting hotel rooms for tortures and interrogations.
Yeah, you got to spend money to make money.
Right. Hiring shady doctors to patch people up, right? And then, of course, all the flights in and out of Tasmania.
Yeah, he's not doing this for the money. I mean, he's losing money. It's for the love of the game.
He said his goal in all his endeavors was to create outrage and anger in the hearts of his enemies, because that's the most stupid emotion a man can have. So he said he read.
Little Mr. Buddhism over here.
He's got like a lot of philosophy, and
Yeah.
he read how to win friends and influence people.
Uh-huh.
But he like kind of has his own interpretation of it, and that's what this is.
Right. It's like how to torture enemies and scare people.
Yeah. He said you want to create mind-numbing confusion, paranoia, and then, like go and say hi to their mom on the street, right? Or like send your enemy flowers, cripple their mind. He says violence is really the final move. It's not something you do constantly. It's like you have to do prime the pump. You know what I mean? He says sometimes he would keep his psychological warfare going against his targets for months, and that's how he would take down the big dogs. And the long game was expensive, man.
Yeah.
After paying everyone off, he was always broke. He said he was just terrible with money. He was a terrifying figure, but he was just robbing and torturing millionaire criminals for chicken feed. Like, I'll flush your heroin if you don't give me $10,000. And then, like, meanwhile, the guy has like $6 million in cash. He just didn't have a strong business model.
Yeah. That's man, I love how he's like, I'm doing this to my enemies. It's like you're inventing your own enemies. None of these people would even know who you are.
No, he's doing it all to himself. It's like he's like a crazy hurricane of a person. And like you said, essentially in the end, Chopper was just kind of doing it all for fun, just nailing people's hands to coffee tables and brawling, doing outrageous things to people and bragging about it. Like, for instance, there's this anecdote. This guy, Alphonse Gangatano, he was called the Black Prince of Lygon Street. He was the face of this major gang, the Carlton Crew at the time. And Chopper has this chapter of his book called The Plastic Godfathers that's basically all about them. And he said he had a rivalry with Gangatano that spanned through the 80s and 90s. And according to Chopper, one time the Carlton Crew had him trapped in a bathroom stall and they were beating his ass. And apparently he escaped that harrowing situation by smearing poop all over Alphonse Gangatano's face. And that's part of what's so funny about this book. It's hilarious because he's clearly using it as a platform to talk shit about people. Like, of course, the one story is when he just like wiped poop all over this guy's face. After just like trash talking him for 16 pages. It's so funny to me.
Man.
Outrageous. Well,
I do think that is a pretty good tactic, though, for anyone out there. If you find yourself in a tricky situation and you need poop hands, just
right on the face.
smear some with poop. It's hard to. They're not going to know how to deal with you. You know what I mean?
For sure, they are not going to know how to deal with you.
Yeah, it's like, don't show up to a gunfight with a knife, but definitely show up to a gunfight with a handful of poop. Like, you're gonna win, or at least you're gonna walk away.
For
no
sure,
bullets.
like it's close quarters stuff, fighting, stabbing.
Yeah,
you're gonna win every time.
Yeah.
Well, as you can imagine, with all of that, Chopper was not a popular man at the time. Criminal overlords took a bunch of contracts out on his head, one for as much as $50,000. So he decided he needed some extra firepower and decided to start working with the Popo. In 1986, Chopper worked with detectives from the Armed Robbery Squad in Melbourne. They wanted to bring down big Melbourne drug kingpins with Chopper's info. And in turn, they kind of gave him a heads up if anyone was planning something against him. Chopper had actually been a police informant on and off since 1977, and that was just another thing that hindered his popularity. I guess for Chopper, you're a punk if you go to police and say like, oh, that guy shot me, right? Like, that's a punk move. But if you trade information with the police, that's not the same as tattling. Like if you get something out of it.
Right.
And according to Chopper, there was this long tradition in the Melbourne crime world of using the police, right? So gangs like to use something called a lemon twist, and that was to pick weak guys or drug addicts from the scene and then hire them. So they would act as police informants, but they're also on the payroll of a specific gang and funneling all their information from the police to that gang. And then the Lemon Twist informs on people from other gangs to set them up, essentially creating assassinations of people orchestrated by the controlling gang and carried out by unwitting police. So that was like the big thing back then. So informing was fair game on some level. It's a little different than I think how we talk about it. Like with the mafia here, like even if you're talking against another.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tony Soprano was working with the feds when...
oh, that's right.
Remember? Because they were like, if you get any information about... It was after the 9/11.
Yeah.
And he started giving him information about different people smuggling stuff in.
So, like,
And they were like, if anyone, tries to put a hit on you, we'll, let you know.
If you like The Sopranos. Spoiler alert. All right. Now, Chopper was giving information on his enemies to police in exchange for some level of protection, and it sounds like maybe a blind eye to the crimes that he was obviously committing. So now he's like happy as a pig, right? And he's just doing his own thing. In the spring of 1987, Chopper was just going off. He spent some time terrorizing Nick the Greek. Now, Nick the Greek was one of those rich heroin dealers in the western suburbs that he talks so much trash about. Over the course of a couple days, Chopper shot up the Greek's mom's house, shot his friend, Chris Liapis, in the gut, and then burned Nick the Greek's house to the ground.
Jesus.
He later wrote, quote, "I burnt Nick the Greek's house down. Big deal. I love a sunburnt country." He said anyone who ever asked him why he did it obviously didn't know Nick. Nick was obnoxious, and he was stupid for caring about the house because he had more money than he could spend. He thought the whole thing was not a big deal and really dumb. All right. Chopper claimed...
Did the guy die? Who got shot in the stomach?
No, he didn't die.
So we're on the 5 to 75 possible murders that Chopper did. Where are we on the scale of that? The people that died from the fire in the jail, Jimmy, does that count towards his body count?
He wasn't even in jail.
He wasn't even there at that point. Yeah. So where are we at in his actual body count?
He's never, up until this point,
yeah,
he's never been accused or charged with any sort of murder charges.
Boy, talking a big game, not freaking sealing the deal.
Chopper claimed after he burned Nick the Greek's house down, he sent a Christmas card to him every year that read, "Dear Nick, I shook your nerves and I rattled your brain. My kind of love just drove you insane. I broke your will. Oh, what a thrill. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Ha ha, thinking of you always, Chopper."
that also seems like something that maybe he did one time.
Yeah, I know. I can't think of him as being somebody super organized with Christmas cards, but maybe he is.
Also, I bet you Nick the Greek is he did? What address did he send them to? I never got
he burned my house down.
Yeah, he sent it to that address?
What address? But just for the record, he actually wasn't caught for terrorizing Nick the Greek until he shot Sammy the Turk Ozarkam a few months later.
I love how in Australia they're just you have to say the name and the ethnicity. Otherwise, it just doesn't stick around.
So many. So June 11th, 1987, Chopper was having a meeting with his detective buddies at the Gawker Club in Melbourne. And at that meeting, he did a little ratting like he usually did. But this time, at the end, he demanded they give him a bulletproof vest right then at the club. So they were like, okay, not great, but they did it. So Chopper said they fitted him for the vest in the parking lot that night and sent him on his way. Then he went to Bojangles nightclub for a quiet drink with a bulletproof vest on and guns shoved down the front and back of his pants. A few hours later, around 6:30 a.m., Chopper shot Siam Ozarkam, a.k.a. Sam the Turk, shot him to death outside the Bojangles nightclub. Later, he straight up told the detectives that he'd murdered Sam the Turk that night, but apparently they thought he was just joking, so they didn't do anything about it.
Good.
He was eventually charged with the murder, but in court, he said it was self-defense. He said the Turk was trying to lure him outside under the pretense of selling him some guns and was planning to have him killed. And even though Chopper was wearing a bulletproof vest, had 2 guns, and an eyewitness who said Chopper clearly killed Sammy the Turk in cold blood, he was acquitted. Years later, just a few days before his death, Chopper confessed to the murder on 60 Minutes Australia. He said he made all the self-defense stuff up. He just killed Sam the Turk because he felt like it. He was, however, jailed in 1987 for terrorizing Nick the Greek and shooting Chris Liapis in the stomach. So he did serve some prison time for that. So he goes back to jail. He only serves like 2 years. And then in 1991, Chopper was released again and moved to Tasmania, promising to go straight. And that same year, he released his first book, Chopper from the Inside. And so began his life in public media. It started off a little rocky, right? In 1992, he did an interview with Hard Copy Australia that had him dubbed the real Tasmanian devil. I watched this episode, this segment. It's insane. So he's just acting really wild with the reporter, Renee Brack. He shot a bottle out of a guy's hand to prove he was a crack shot. He's like, Renee, watch this. They're outside on his compound, and he has all these guns. And he has this kid who couldn't be more than like 19 hold up a bottle, and he just takes the gun like this, looks at him like this, and then shoots the bottle and explodes all over his face, you know.
And she's like, we have to go now.
I mean, it's very intense, right?
Yeah.
And then he loaded his pistol with a single bullet, held the gun up to his head, and fired to show her how good he was at Russian roulette. And Chopper then said it was Renee's turn, and she said she didn't want to play. And he said, well, bad luck, and fired the gun in her face.
Oh, my God.
And the gun just clicked again. After the interview, he also sent Renee...
What did she do after that?
She played it so cool. She didn't even flinch. It's crazy watching that. It's like something that they omitted from the original segment. They didn't air that on TV, but then later it came out. I think she released it on YouTube.
That reminds me of that Tippi Hedren
Yeah.
thing where they show up to eat dinner with the lions, and everyone's like completely terrified of it. It's like the scariest, most irresponsible, nightmarish situation ever, but then they still show the photos as if it was just like Tippi Hedren and her lovely pets.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. I mean, you're definitely... I thought she was incredibly chill because I think it really went off the rails. Like, he was acting really wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she played it really cool.
But I just don't... I feel like it's not ethical to not show that part. You either have to scrap the whole thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Or show that part.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. But yeah, I don't know if they could show it, you know.
I mean, is what they showed like, was it kind of glorifying, or maybe showing that would be more glorifying? I don't know.
I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but it's pretty crazy. It's one of the craziest, like, I've seen quite a few of those sort of like this interview went off the rails thing.
Yeah, I would say pointing a loaded gun and pulling the trigger at the interviewer, Russian roulette style.
On Hard Copy, like, it was like a major broadcast. Anyway, it was pretty crazy. After the interview, he sent Renee Brack something like 18 letters. In one, he called himself a no-eared monster and told her he'd like to kidnap her one day. In May 1992, Chopper gave his biker friend... because they were buddies, his biker friend Sidney Collins an ornate walking stick for his birthday. One with an eagle's head carved in the handle and a built-in flask, so super fancy. And the next day, he shot Sidney Collins in the stomach with his own Beretta pistol and dropped him off at the hospital, telling him, "You're a staunch bloke, you won't say nothing." Spoiler alert, he did say something. At his trial for shooting Sidney Collins in the stomach.
He loves shooting people in the stomach and letting them live.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He only gets like 2 years. So it's like he's not murdering people. Potentially he is or he isn't. I don't really know. But he really is shooting quite a few people. So at his trial, Chopper claimed he never shot Sidney Collins and it was all a setup. In court, Chopper shouted he was framed like the Mona Lisa and, quote, "This is like something out of Alice in Wonderland. They have been lying their heads off for a couple days. If I wanted to shoot the prick, he would have been bloody well dead." He argued he had shot a lot of people, and anyone he shot probably deserved it. You don't get shot for no reason, do you? Although he did say, still, I didn't do it.
Okay, little Mr. Anti-Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles dropping Alice in Wonderland references.
It's a classic.
No, he's gone soft.
In the last interview Chopper did before he died, he told 60 Minutes he successfully murdered Sidney Collins in 2002. So Sidney Collins did disappear back in 2002, but it's considered a cold case. He's technically missing. Chopper said the reason he shot Sidney in the first place, the first time, was that he was told he was supposed to donate $8,000 for his wedding, like a biker gang tradition or something. It's very convoluted. And then Chopper got mad about the idea that he was supposed to give him a bunch of money, so he shot him in the stomach. And then he took him to the hospital after, Sidney promised not to tell on him. And Chopper said, I was being very Christian at the time, but Sidney ratted on him and he spent 6 years in prison. So ultimately, he murdered Sidney Collins because he was, quote, an absolute turd. It's from 60 Minutes. He said he murdered Sidney Collins one night. Actually, the night he murdered him, it was because Sidney came to one of his comedy shows and came up to him completely out of his mind on cocaine, asking for an autograph, pretending like they were friends. And then he also was like way out of it and tried to get backstage to hang out with him after Chopper wouldn't sign his autograph. So Chopper said he followed him home, shot him with his own pistol again, this time killing him, and then buried him somewhere out in the bush in New South Wales.
Are we going to, so what, he's just out there doing comedy at this point?
Yeah, he did hella comedy. We're going to get to that.
All right.
Don't worry about it. That was in 2002.
Is any of that on YouTube? Did you watch any of his bits?
Yeah, they're pretty wild. He's a wild... Obviously, he's like a phenomenon. He's very polarizing, but as a character...
Is he funny? Can he formulate a joke?
I didn't watch enough to really decide that.
Yeah.
But I would say in his serious interviews for 60 Minutes and hard copy,
yeah,
there are points when he says some clowning stuff, and he says clowning stuff that's quoted in the newspaper. So, and his book is pretty funny. So I'm guessing he knows a little bit about how to tell a yarn.
Yeah. Framed like the Mona Lisa is not
Yeah, but if you're talking about a guy with no ears, who's the wildest person of all time, and he's in court and he stands up indignant saying, "I was framed like the Mona," he knows that he knows what he's doing. He's obviously did it. All right. After spending 6 years in a Tasmanian prison for shooting Sidney Collins the first time, Chopper was finally done with prison. He was released in 1998. Chopper at one point had a jailhouse marriage a few years earlier to a woman named Mary Ann Hodge. And the couple had a son, Chopper, named Charlie, after his longtime friend, Mad Charlie Hagaji, a big-time crystal meth dealer in Melbourne.
Okay, so that one he liked.
He did like him.
Okay.
The film Chopper was released in 2000, and it was a big hit and launched a pretty meaty multimedia career for Chopper. He'd been writing books for years. He wrote over a dozen autobiographical and historical fiction books, like novels, and he even released a children's book called Hooky the Cripple, The Grim Tale of a Hunchback Who Triumphs. There's a lot of stabbing in that one, just by the way.
It's more like young adult fiction than children's.
It rhymes like a nursery rhyme.
Uh-huh.
I heard somebody read a thing about, he stabbed the butcher, the blood was red. He fell down in the dirt. He was dead. The whole thing. It's not like not
like-
like Harry Potter,
Yeah,
right?
it's like, maybe I should just put this on a beat and be a rapper.
Well, here we go. Also, just by the way, Hooky the Cripple. I was trying to find a copy of it. The only place I could find it was on eBay for like $400. He appeared in a few films and television shows. He had his own wine and beer line at one point. He had gallery exhibitions of his paintings that he'd done. And he did a bunch of really popular comedy tours with like one with a disgraced cop and then one with like a comedian. And he was like on this guy's TV show doing all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Good for him.
He also released a hip hop album
Yes.
called Interview with a Madman. I am going to play you one of the songs.
Good. This is great. YouTube might make us cut it out of the video episode. So you're
Okay,
going to have to
so-
jump over to the audio to hear this.
We'll-
Maybe. We
we'll
don't
throw
know.
the- we'll
It's a
throw the-
mystery.
Why do you keep
Sorry.
talking over each other?
My bad. My bad.
We'll throw the link up in the show notes for the video. So if you're watching this and you don't hear it, you can click it and still
Yeah,
hear it. Okay?
yeah.
Ready?
That's amazing because it's simultaneously like the least swagged out, most like, I'm an old white guy. This is me giving it a try. Like but also it's like,
He's like 50
bona fide
something.
true gangster rap also at the same time. It's like, I've never heard something so inauthentic and authentic simultaneously.
And he's not trying to be funny. This is not a comedy album. This is a real rap.
Yeah. I love it. It sounds like a person who listened to one rap song in like, I don't know, 1987, like the first rap song, and then didn't listen to any of the innovation that happened like up through the 90s.
Yeah.
And was like, I know how this works.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, it's that thing of like being isolated,
Yeah.
and just being like, well, when he was out for 2 months in the 90s or something, and then he was in prison for 6 more years and he came out, it's like, I can do that.
Yeah, right.
I really wanted to play that. For
Son of a whore.
you.
You know what? I don't think any American rapper has ever actually said that. So, wow, that's a real innovation, you son of a whore.
He put some stank on it. It's very like rhythmic. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. For a second there, I was like, he is definitely not speaking English. It really took me. It was like Game of Thrones, It took me like 4 or 5
To drop into
episodes
that
to like,
accent.
what are they saying?
I know.
Well,
it was like, what are they saying? And then it was like, what are their names? Nick and I have watched that, like, the series Game of Thrones. I've watched it a few times.
Oh, I don't know anyone's name to this day. All I know is Khaleesi, and that's not even a real name. That's the only character I could tell you.
That was
Jon
the-
Snow, I guess. And the zombies, but I don't even think that's what they're called. I don't know anyone.
The White Walkers.
The White Walkers. See, and I thought those were the meth heads from Breaking Bad. So what do I know?
If you and Chopper had gone on tour together, that would
I
have
had a
been
little comedy, a little rap,
a little rap,
friends,
little
rap pals.
painting.
Oh yeah, painting.
Yeah.
Are his paintings good?
Kind of.
Are
They're
they
weird.
better than his rap music?
I think that you would find the same pros and cons in both. So Chopper ended up divorcing his first wife and marrying his old girlfriend, Margaret Kasser. In his 1991 memoir, his book, Chopper, he said Margaret was the only real girlfriend he'd ever had in his life, and he'd loved her since 1983. He has pictures of her in his book. He loved her. And they had a son together named Roy when Chopper was 50 years old. After all the years, though, Chopper never improved his ability to handle money. He declared bankruptcy in 2007. In 2012, Chopper announced he had terminal liver cancer, hepatitis C, and cirrhosis of the liver. Reed says he picked up hepatitis C during his 23 bloody years of prison fighting and also ear chopping. He wasn't a candidate for liver transplant because he had too much stabbing related scar tissue. So that was off the table. And days before dying of liver cancer, Reed did this interview with 60 Minutes Australia.
And he knew he was dying.
Yeah, he knew he was dying. He was yellow in the interview.
Yeah.
He's got like a yellow tint to all of his skin and his eyes. And it's really fascinating. I mean, I don't know how often that happens, where they're like, he says, I'm going to do this interview with you and I'm going to confess to the murders I've actually done.
Mm-hmm.
And he does beat by beat. But he begins that by saying, 4 is all you're getting. That's it. I haven't killed any more than that. Chopper Reed died in 2013 at the age of 58. The end.
Man.
Yeah.
I guess R.I.P. He shouldn't live in peace.
I know.
I don't know how
to feel about it,
Yeah.
but I certainly enjoyed learning about it. Sometimes when people are just, I mean, I don't know what his plan was or his motivation.
Well, it's kind of like Dexter, right? Where it's like, I'm a serial killer.
Who kills serial killers.
So I'm going to like channel this towards people who deserve it.
Yeah.
Quote unquote deserve. And then he's sort of the same way. Like, it doesn't sound like he ever even robbed, except for when he was a kid, like an innocent person.
Yeah. I think that's his claim, I mean, reading what he wrote, I got the impression that he's done, he has a way of spinning what he's done. So it's hard to tell what somebody's really done.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course, yeah.
He could have done a lot of more terrible things.
He also could have so easily not done the vast majority of terrible things that he did.
He's known for stealing other people's stories. That's true.
Uh-huh.
But the bounties on his head, those are true.
Yeah.
And that he definitely, he was doing something enough for him to have multiple bounties on his head from different gangs. And that's in newspapers and stuff.
Yeah. He sounds like a cult leader in that way where you can spin some good BS.
Just looking through the newspaper archives, pre-internet, you'd just be like, man, what a weirdo. It's like, oh, that guy, man, crazy. He tried to kidnap that judge. He cut his ears off. Then 2 years later, he's like, he shot a guy in the stomach and burnt that guy's house down. And 3 years later, it's like, man, his dad's out here saying, oh man, there's all these contracts on my son's head.
Yeah.
He's in the paper.
Oh my God, that guy's at the Laugh Factory. Let's go see
exactly.
it.
It's like he has decades of headlines in the newspaper. You could grow up, if you were in Melbourne, for instance, you could grow up just tracking this guy without even trying. It's just always in the paper.
Sorry, what happened to the kid that did the waiter thing? Did he also die in that fire?
No.
What happened to him?
No. I think he got out. And he's, as of 1991, Amos Atkinson, according to Chopper, was out of prison and doing great.
Missing an ear or two.
Yeah, both of them, yeah.
Getting his ass beat by his mom.
Yeah, probably living with his mom. He's like, what did you do to your ears?
I love that mother. God bless her. And God bless you, our wonderful listeners of Muriel's Murders.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening.
We just like you so much. So, thanks.
Yeah.
And we'll be back. We have some more fun episodes coming up.
Yeah, we're hitting you with a couple Patreons this month.
Yeah.
2 exclusive true crime episodes, 1 exclusive non-true crime episode.
I'm going to tell you guys about going to see Beyonce. So
wow.
Get ready.
If you needed even more of a reason to get a $5 subscription, there it was.
Think
Beyonce,
about it.
Cowboy Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
Muriel
epic.
met Blue Ivy.
That's not true.
That's not true.
At all.
But Muriel did learn who Blue Ivy was. All right. Thanks, guys. We love you. Find us on all the things and be good to yourself and each other.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Jerry Springer. May the peace be with you. All right.